Hey friends, I'm Miss B, and this is Barbie. You can be a chef. One Saturday, Barbie and Nikki visited their favorite food truck, Chef Halle's Fancy Mac. Barbie said, taking a big bite of her macaroni and cheese. This is so delicious. Barbie's best friend Nikki agreed. Chef Halle's Fancy Mac is the best, she exclaimed. It's so sweet and creamy, and I think I taste garlic too, Barbie guessed. You know what? Barbie said suddenly. I think I'm going to make Fancy Mac for us tomorrow. Nikki's eyes twinkled. Yum! Count me in. I'll bring Teresa. At the grocery store the next morning, Barbie stared at the different cheeses. There were so many. Which one does Chef Halle use? Barbie wondered. After a while, she chose a cheese with a fancy-sounding name. She tossed it in her basket with the pasta, milk, and butter and went home to start cooking. This cheese smells really strong, Barbie said, scrunching up her nose. Maybe I picked the wrong one? She glanced up at the clock. Her friends would be over soon. There was still a lot to do. Maybe when I mix the milk, the cheese won't be so smelly, she said hopefully. Barbie mixed the milk together with the cheese, salt, pepper, and garlic, and poured it over the noodles. She popped the dish in the oven and set the timer. We can't wait to taste your Fancy Mac, Barbie's friend Nikki sang out as she and Teresa walked through the door. I heard it is amazing, Teresa added. Just then, the oven timer beeped. It's ready, Barbie said. Nikki scrunched her nose. Do you smell something? She asked Teresa. Barbie carried the Fancy Mac to the kitchen table. Teresa tried hers first. Creamy, she started to say, then she stopped smiling. Nikki tasted a forkful too. It's nice, she said unconvincingly. What? It's not good? Barbie asked them as she went to take a bite herself. No, it's fine, Barbie, Teresa said, trying to smile. It's interesting. Barbie took a bite to see for herself and spit it out immediately. This isn't interesting. This is terrible. It's not that bad, Barbie, Teresa said, trying to cheer up her friend. I mean, it's really creamy. Maybe you just used the wrong cheese or something. Barbie nodded. There's more to cooking than I thought. Tomorrow I'm going to ask Chef Halle if she'll teach me how to make her Fancy Mac. The next day, Barbie explained to Chef Halle how her Fancy Mac had been a failure. You use this cheese? The chef asked, surprised by the label Barbie showed her. A cheese with a fancy name isn't what makes my Fancy Mac so good. What does then? Barbie asked. If you come by the Horizon Senior Center where I volunteer, I'll teach you the real recipe, Chef Halle said. Barbie's eyes widened. Really? That would be amazing. Thank you. The next day, Barbie stood in Chef Halle's busy kitchen at the Senior Center. She was ready to start making delicious Fancy Mac. Barbie grabbed a wooden spoon that was on the counter. Ready, she exclaimed. Not so fast, Chef Halle told her. Before you cook, bake, chop, dice, or boil anything in my kitchen, you need to learn Chef Halle's kitchen rules. She pointed to a sign that hung above the ovens. Barbie read and reread the rules, trying to remember each one. Around her, Chef Halle's assistants were busy stirring, slicing, and dicing. Always keep your recipe close by so you can check as you go, Barbie read out loud. If I memorize the Fancy Mac recipe too, it will show Chef Halle how much I really want to be a chef. Barbie was still memorizing the list of rules when everyone around her started cleaning up. They were done making dinner. But I didn't get to cook anything, she said to Chef Halle. Tomorrow, Chef Halle promised. She handed Barbie the recipe for Fancy Mac. Have the kitchen rules memorized and read through the recipe. Then we'll get cooking. I understand, said Barbie. That night, Barbie went over Chef Halle's kitchen rules in her head until she had them memorized. Then she looked at the recipe card. She read through the list of ingredients until she came to the words spinach and onions. Spinach and onions, she said. That's strange. I don't remember tasting spinach or onions. Then, one bay leaf. And I'm pretty sure I've never seen a bay leaf in Chef Halle's Fancy Mac. Barbie kept memorizing. When she felt she knew the recipe by heart, she slipped the card back in her bag and turned off the light. The next afternoon, Barbie recited the kitchen rules for Chef Halle. "Great job, Barbie," Chef Halle said. "I think you're ready." "Here are the ingredients we will need," Chef Halle said as Barbie followed her across the room. Barbie spotted a large container marked bay leaves. "I guess there really is a bay leaf in Fancy Mac." "Have you read the recipe?" Chef Halle asked her. "Yes," Barbie replied. "Even better, I memorized it," she thought happily. "What do we do first, Barbie?" Chef Halle asked. Barbie smiled. "We boil water for the pasta," she announced confidently. "Are you sure?" Chef Halle asked. "It's okay if you need to look at the recipe." Barbie shook her head. "That's okay. I know it," she replied. Barbie shut her eyes tightly and pictured the recipe in her head. "Wait!" she cried, opening her eyes. "First we preheat the oven. Then we boil the water." Chef Halle grinned, then motioned for Barbie to start. "Preheating the oven," Barbie called out excitedly. "Boiling the water for the pasta," Barbie announced next. "Measuring the ingredients," she exclaimed. "Greasing the baking dishes," she shouted. Barbie felt like a real chef as she worked next to Chef Halle and her assistant chefs in the kitchen. She grated cheese and chopped spinach. She made sure to follow the kitchen rules about knives and was extra careful. She stirred pasta in the enormous pot, and when it was ready, she helped pour the pasta in the strainer, saying, "Careful, hot pot coming through." Her favorite part was chopping the onions, even though the strong fumes from the onions made her eyes tear up. "Do I look like I'm crying?" she asked through her tears. "Yes, you do," Chef Halle replied with a laugh. Barbie melted butter in a very large pan. "Check your recipe. What's the next step, Barbie?" Chef Halle asked her. "I remember," Barbie replied, thinking hard. "It's time to add the paprika, bay leaf, salt, pepper, and garlic. Then whisk them all together." Barbie had never used a whisk before, but it didn't look hard. She was surprised when the mixture suddenly began to thicken. "This is, actually harder than I thought," she mumbled, trying to stir. "Need some help?" Allison, the assistant chef, asked. "The trick is to move the whisk side to side in the pot rather than stir." Barbie gave it a try. It worked. "Thanks for the tip, Chef Allison," she said. She got so caught up in whisking like a pro, when the oven timer went off, Barbie froze. She couldn't remember what to do next. "Check your recipe card, Barbie," Chef Halle said. "What's the next step?" "But I don't need to look," Barbie said. "I memorized the recipe last night." Barbie felt like she was letting Chef Halle down. "Barbie, you don't need to memorize the recipes," Chef Halle told her. "Cooking is about taking your time and checking your steps along the way. Even I keep my recipes right here in my apron pocket. Now, take a peek at your recipe and see what's next." Barbie relaxed and read the card. "It's time to add the cheese," she announced. Barbie mixed the cheese, pasta, and spinach together in a big pot. Then she and Allison poured it into baking dishes and sprinkled breadcrumbs on top. "It's ready to go in the oven," Barbie announced. "Are you sure?" Chef Halle asked. Barbie checked her recipe card. "I'm sure," she replied. "That smells delicious, Barbie," Chef Halle said when they pulled the trays of Fancy Mac from the oven a little while later. "Thanks," Barbie replied. "And this time it looks just like yours from the truck." "Let's head into the dining room then," Chef Halle said, "and see if it tastes as good as it looks." "Surprise!" Barbie's friend shouted when she stepped into the dining room. Barbie opened her eyes wide in amazement. "What are you guys doing here?" "Chef Halle invited us," Nikki told her. "We can't wait to try your Fancy Mac," said Teresa. Barbie served the dish. Then she held her breath as everyone took a bite. Nikki jumped up and gave Barbie a hug. "This tastes amazing, Barbie!" "You're not just saying that, are you?" Barbie asked. "No way! It's super delicious," Teresa assured her. "The best!" Just then, Raquel, who was also volunteering at the senior center, appeared at their table. "What's this Fancy Mac everyone keeps raving about?" she asked. "Why don't you try for yourself?" Barbie replied, handing Raquel a bowl. Raquel took a bite of the mac and cheese and smiled. "Mmm," she started to say. Then she stopped. Everyone looked at her. "What is it, Raquel?" Barbie asked. "Why do you have a weird look on your face?" Everybody watched as Raquel slowly opened her mouth and pulled out a bay leaf. Oh no! Barbie cried. I forgot to take out the bay leaf. She felt her face turn red. Chef Halle leaned in and whispered in Barbie's ear, No worries, Barbie. That happens to professional chefs too, myself included. Barbie laughed. Well, that makes me feel a little better, she admitted. But I should have checked the recipe one last time anyway. Step 9, she read from the card, says remove the bay leaf. At least I know I'll never make that mistake again, Barbie said with a laugh. Dear Chef Halle, it was so much fun learning how to make fancy mac with you at the Senior Center. I can't believe how much there is to know about being a chef. Thank you for everything you taught me. Maybe you can show me how to cut onions without crying. Ha ha. And I promise the next time I make fancy mac, I'll remember to take out the bay leaf. Your friend, Barbie. Later, Gators. Learn, grow, and let the stories flow. Like and subscribe.